excuse me while I blend out my lipstick. Ooh, someone just tagged me in a post on Instagram, but I can't check because I just went live. All right. You know, my lips are still not fully recovered from the first time that I went to the beach this summer, which was like almost a whole month ago by this point. Like, I can put regular lipstick over it, but I can't do my MAC Squirt Plumping Glosses because those are minty. And they're not even like painful to begin with. It's just that my lips they're not fully healed. I don't know what's going on. I've never experienced this length of time, like having it take this long for anything to heal, let alone a simple sunburn. Sorry, I want to touch up the rest of my makeup too, if you don't mind, before we get into the movie discussion. And just a announcement. So from now on, all of my chats or all of my live streams will require you to be a member in order to chat. Because I just get too many weirdos on here, you guys, that think, I don't know, people with nothing to do, and they try to come in here talking about something that's like not related to the topic. So I realized that, oh, there's a pretty simple solution. Just make it members only. So if you want to support my channel, definitely consider signing up for a membership. I'm not sure exactly. I don't have like a set schedule in place for what I'm going to be posting on there, but it's definitely going to be on a more frequent basis than my regular stuff. So, okay, let's put on some blush. I haven't even had this makeup on for that long today. I was like, what time was it? I got ready at around 4-ish to go out to pick up something from the city hall, and then it's only like 7:40 now. So I haven't even had this makeup on for like 5 hours, but already the blush has faded. Yeah, it's a great blush, great texture and color, but it just doesn't have that much lasting power no matter how you cut it. I like to put it in like a triangle shape to give a lifted, slimming effect, you know? So yeah, I guess this is just gonna be like a normal thing for us from now on. Every time I watch a new movie, I'm just gonna come on here and share with you my thoughts. Probably not gonna be the typical movie review that you guys are expecting, or you know, the ones that you see normally from other YouTubers. I like to mix mine in with a lot of, I guess, like that I'm going on. I see a lot of movies. I mean, I can't help but see pretty much everything through that lens these days. And I also, yeah, I don't really have like a plan necessarily about what I'm going to talk about, but like I said, just anything that comes up or wants to get channeled through me relating to like manifestation and mindset that I feel like is related to the movie, I will probably also touch on that in this stream. Okay, so much like with Top Gun, or actually like pretty much all the movies that I've been watching so far this year, I have a unique perspective in the sense that, so a lot of these are legacy franchises, right? Like Top Gun and Little Mermaid, which is, you know, it's not like it was a sequel or anything, but they did the live action of the original cartoon, which I never actually watched. So I was kind of, it was interesting to watch all of the controversy surrounding The Little Mermaid go down from that perspective. You know, for me, it was, I had no original basis to compare it with, since I never watched the original movie in its entirety. So I was able to pretty much just look at the movie with fresh eyes and base, my experience was not tainted with any like high expectations from the original movie. And yeah, so it's pretty much been the same for everything else I've watched this year. Like Top Gun, was that this year or last year? I can't keep track of time anymore. But yeah, Top Gun, Indiana Jones, and then now Mission Impossible, which this is, if you can believe it, the first Mission Impossible movie ever that I've watched, not just in theaters, but at all in life. So it's kind of interesting because like now I finally, every time I watch something that's, I mean, even just the very fact of people, there's a debate and there's a lot of people that are discontent with the fact that these studios are just coming out with all of these legacy sequels, because people see it as a way of pretty much just gouging loyal fans of their money, like a quick cash grab, right? They feel like, you know, these studios can bank on the nostalgia fans showing up at the box office and giving them a guaranteed return on investment. And so instead of like actually spending a lot of effort to create a new story, new compelling stories, or newer compelling movies, they would rather just take the easy route and, like, you could say the more exploitative route of making legacy sequels, because that way, even if they're bad or by popular opinion or just categorically so, people are still going to turn up to watch it. They're still going to be, you know, you can't help it, right? Even oh yeah, and then even Spider-Man too. Sorry, I'm going all over the place, but even the multiverse for Spider-Man, I never watched the first film. So I was also, I entered the story in medias res, so to speak, for that franchise as well. But that one did turn out to be like the one that so far it seems to have been critically praised by pretty much everyone. And I think Mission Impossible too, Top Gun and Mission Impossible. So typically Tom Cruise movies do tend to do very well at the box office and also in terms of audience reception. And I can really start to see why now. This is my second Tom Cruise movie that I've watched in theaters as they've been released in real time. And of course I know who Tom Cruise is. I've watched not a ton of his stuff, because I think he really rose to prominence like kind of in the generation before me. So I never watched the original Top Gun. I never watched, like, what was that other famous one? A Few Good Men. I watched Jerry Maguire like way after the original release, and so there was a point where like I was kind of a little bit obsessed with Jerry Maguire for a bit, but that was kind of a depressing movie, if I'm gonna be honest. And I know that like people, there's been a lot of think pieces written about that movie in recent years, saying how it was kind of promoting like toxic love or pygmyism, and I can definitely see that critique. I'm gonna take a sip of water. But yeah, I do remember watching Minority Report in theaters. I think I was in like either middle school or high school when that one came out, and I had no idea what was going on. I mean, like, sort of kind of knew, but not really, did not really keep up with the plot that well. And then there was one more from Tom Cruise. Oh yeah, the one where they were like with Nicole Kidman, where they went to like the freaky freaky sex parties. Oh god, what was that called? Eyes Wide Shut? Eyes Wide Open? Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah. Which I didn't enjoy either. I mean, I understood from like an artistic standpoint what the film was trying to say, what kind of commentary it was making, but as far as like its cult status, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth all that. But hey, I mean, you know, that masked party idea, it still lives on to this day. Like, I would like to attend a masked party. I know that that's not the, or that movie is not the origin of a masked party. Those are actual like parties that happened in ancient Venice, or I think it's Italy. But anyway, so yeah, I'm aware of like, I guess aside from the franchises, I've seen a lot of Tom Cruise movies, but I've never seen Mission Impossible. And it's interesting because like now after watching the latest installment, I finally understand all of the little cultural references in there that I've seen in other places, that like for example the mask machine thing, where like the mask of where they make the mask of, you know, the person that they're trying to impersonate, and it's very realistic looking, and then they'll take off the mask and reveal their true identity underneath. I mean, I knew that, like I would see that in so many different places, like Family Guy, or just referenced all over the place, right, in TV shows. And then I kind of sort of knew that, oh, okay, obviously this must be a reference or a callback to some sort of science fiction film, but I never knew that it was Mission Impossible because I didn't watch any Mission Impossible films up until now. So yeah, like those little things, I kind of, it was fun to finally, in 2023, be caught up to speed on those. And not just the mask thing, there were a couple of other ones too that I was like, oh, so this is like this is the original place where that reference came from. Like the self-destructing message too, right? You know, where you get the delivery of the audio tape or whatever that plays the mission that you're supposed to take part in, and then it says this message will self-destruct in 5, 4, 3. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that was also from Mission Impossible. What else? The one where there was like so I never saw, I don't know which Mission Impossible movie exactly this is from, but where Tom Cruise, I guess, is like lower down from the ceiling into a room because he's not supposed to touch the floor or something. So like basically, you know, one of my favorite movies of all time, Charlie's Angels, the first one, with Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, and who's the other one? Cameron Diaz. That was like, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's just like really good memories of middle school and high school. That was like, and that was like one of the first DVDs I ever owned. My mom bought it for me. I'm not really sure why. I don't think it was for like a birthday or Christmas or any sort of event. I just came home one day and I saw like 3 DVDs, and Charlie's Angels happened to be one of them. So I always liked that movie because I felt like it was the perfect combination of so many different genres, like comedy, thriller, action thriller. And then so I realized, okay, that like after watching this Dead Reckoning Part 1, I realized how many references from that original Charlie's Angels movie was from Mission Impossible. Even like the beginning scene where she, you know, Drew Barrymore's character is pretending to be LL Cool J, and they're on a plane, and she needs to like she basically like bum rushes that guy with the bomb off of the plane, and they're like hurtling down, and then one of her, I think Cameron Diaz, is waiting for them with a boat. So like I think that whole sequence was a call back or a reference, an homage, we can say, to Mission Impossible. And yeah, like pretty much everything, pretty much the entire plot of that movie. So it's kind of interesting to see the source material, right, or the inspiration for one of my favorite movies of all time. But anyway, let's get into the actual Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning review. So I will make a few spoilers in this video. If you don't want to hear them, you can click out now. This is your warning. I'm sorry, but I'm just not one of those people. I cannot review a movie without going into the nitty-gritty and basically spoiling the plot. I don't think it's really possible, right? So I guess there are a few things that really stood out to me. So I'm not going to go in any particular order. First of all, let's just backtrack for a second to Tom Cruise. I feel like, okay, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I was very resistant to watching both Top Gun and this new Mission Impossible because of Tom Cruise's infamous, you know, decades-long affiliation with Scientology. I really, really am against that cult, which is what it is. Let's not pretend that it's a religion. I'm really against that cult and what it does to people in its system, especially the ones that want to leave. Their treatment of ex-Scientologists and their family members is extremely abhorrent in my opinion, and I just don't think that I'm sure that like it's a different experience for people like Tom Cruise, celebrities. I'm sure that they get the red carpet treatment, so that maybe you know, it's impossible. They're very shielded from the realities or like the horrors of what is being done to actual lower rank, so to speak, Scientologists. But even so, I don't find that to be an excuse because we live in the information age. But that's also why I think that's also why Scientology does not allow its members to, you know, go on the web or something. I don't know exactly, but it seems like they're forbidden to search for anything on the internet about Scientology, or they're told that everything that's published about them in a negative light is propaganda, right? When in fact it's the opposite. So yeah, I don't like that whole thing, and I think the whole even more so than just, I mean, if you want to be a member of Scientology, dude, fine, that's on you. But the whole thing that went down with Katie Holmes, and then, you know, like the weirdness surrounding his relationship or lack thereof with her and Suri has also been an area that really raised my eyebrows for as long as I've known about it. And so, not that that's any of our business, right? But at the same time, it's just, you have to say, you have to admit that it looks pretty suspicious that he would continue to be affiliated and really go hard. Not just that, but like really double down on his support for Scientology when it so clearly affected his ex-wife and daughter, like his own flesh and blood, in such a negative way. So that part of his, you know, not that, of course, there is some element of being able to separate the art from the man, that you might say, you might argue that you have to exercise that here, but in my opinion, it's just, there's a line, right, up to which you can excuse certain things, and I feel like the whole Scientology thing is just too murky and too suspicious, too sus for me to completely turn a blind eye to that. But then, of course, you know, I relented, because what else am I gonna do to procrastinate when I don't want to work on a weekday? And I must say that the recent interviews that I've been seeing of Tom Cruise, I mean, again, this could all just be his facade, his public persona that he is definitely a master at this point, you know, being possibly one of the, if not the most famous movie star in recent times that is still alive. Of course, we expect nothing less than for him to be super charismatic and draw people in during his interviews and public appearances. But I do feel that consistently so, like watching his, because I'm very interested in like the behind the scenes perspective, right, on movies such as Top Gun and Mission Impossible. That's the thing about these movies that makes it so irresistible to even me, someone who's very like not forgiving when it comes to the whole Scientology situation. The thing that makes it irresistible is how high quality they are, right? I mean, you can't deny that the guy puts 1,000%. He gives his all to his craft, and you can't deny how much, how genuine his love for movie making is and his dedication, right? I mean, I never knew, like, I never realized until recent years, until Top Gun and the new MI, that Tom did most of his stunts, and it never really hit me like how much that actually takes out of a person until I saw Top Gun, and I realized that, and I watched behind the scenes and I saw how they all, you know, like he's an actual pilot, right? I think he has certification, and then not only that, he's like super on hands-on training the other actors that were brought onto the franchise, and like just has a hand involved in everything. I mean, being a stunt actor itself, that is an entire job on its unto itself. But then you have people like Tom Cruise, right? Or maybe, you know, he's a one of a kind. He's like acting, directing, producing, writing, training people. Like he's doing 10 jobs at the same time. So you gotta respect that to a certain degree. But I noticed that in recent interviews, he just seems to be like a lot more grounded, and a lot like consistently more, what's the word? Grounded, wiser, and a lot of this could also be due to age. The guy is turning 61 after all, but I just felt like a calmness, like a humility in him that I feel like we haven't really. This is a far cry from, in my opinion, the Tom Cruise that we saw jumping on Oprah's couch, right? Back then, you know, the infamous time when it came out that he was engaged to Katie Holmes, which was kind of scandalous at the time, if you remember, because he had just split with Nicole Kidman, and then now he's going for, you know, this girl that's 16 years younger than him, but she was 26 at the time. I feel like nowadays, like, in a way, as strange as it sounds, it would not be as scandalous nowadays if something like that happened, but for some reason, like back then, I don't think 16 years is that huge of a gap, all things considered, but back then people were making it seem like, oh, you know, he's dating someone young enough to be his daughter, which was not really the case. I mean, he was like 42 and she was 26, so that happens all the time, even more so nowadays with the whole like sugar daddy, sugar baby culture. And so yeah, I feel like you would expect it to be even more controversial this day and age, because there's so much, like, it's the Me Too movement, but then at the same time, I don't know, people are kind of also going back towards that traditional model of, well, it should be an older man and a younger woman so that he can take care of her. But anyway, like, his public appearances during that time, I distinctly remember there was quite a bit of ego involved. I won't say in every single interview, but definitely, like, there was a cockiness there that, again, it could have just been due to his younger age at the time, but I don't sense any of that at all in his recent press material that he's been doing for MI. So, I mean, like, in that sense, I don't know. I don't really keep up that much with Tom Cruise. So if anyone out there is like a mega Tom Cruise fan, maybe you can shed some light on this. Did he have some sort of like spiritual awakening? Did he do ayahuasca somewhere in Africa? Like, all of that could be possible. But he's still part of Scientology, though. This much we know. So dude, I mean, he has been less vocal about it, though. So yeah, that's another thing. I feel like he has really quieted down in terms of the vocal support and public endorsement of Scientology. Again, there could be many reasons to that. I don't know if he's still like BFF with David Miscavige, but whatever. You know, as long as it doesn't spill into the movies themselves, like the art, I think it's good enough to just keep an eye on the situation, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, overall, Tom Cruise just giving very chill, very humble vibes nowadays. And he's not getting triggered either. So that's the main thing. I think that's what I was getting at. Like, people are not asking him necessarily hard-hitting questions in these interviews, to be fair, but I just noticed that, you know, whatever people say to him, even if it's like kind of an asinine question or a generic question, you never see a hint of annoyance or I'm better than you syndrome in his eyes. Like, he's always very engaging and very polite and just like genuinely present. Also, that's the sense that I get from him in recent appearances. So, I mean, yeah, if that is what I think it is, as being an indicator of finding some sort of inner peace, I'm happy for him, you know? But let's get to the movie. So, like I said, I never watched any of the other films in this franchise, so to be honest, I was a little bit lost. Like, I did not 100% understand what was exactly happening in the plot, although I understand that Tom and what was the guy's name, McQuarrie, the director, their goal with these movies is so that you don't necessarily have to watch all of the other movies in order to understand what's going on in every individual installment. So in that sense, like, I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, it was still very entertaining for me. I was able to pick up on things pretty quickly as the plot progressed, but there are still a lot of like plot holes for me personally that I'm sure if I went back and watched the previous movies, I would have a fuller understanding. But at the same time, that's a lot of movies, right? Like, I would love to, but there's only so much hours in the day. So, okay. What did I want to say? Where do I want to start? Well, first of all, I want to say that I found it very refreshing and I really appreciated the way that they went about representing strong females in this movie. It was not in your face, like, it was not the woke in your face type of representation that we are used to a lot of movies doing these days, where in my case, in my opinion, those often miss the mark because, well, for one thing, it will always have the female character explain somehow, like say out loud to the audience how amazing and badass she is for being a strong independent woman. And I feel like if you have to have this character say it from their mouths, that's not good script writing, right? It's actually very annoying and it feels very forced. And so I feel like there was a little bit of that in Indiana Jones, where Helena Shaw, there was that one scene where they were you know, they were riding through the streets of, I forget where, Morocco or somewhere, and they were in the rickshaw, and then she was kind of like arguing back and forth with Indy, and she was saying, well, you know, didn't I turn out good? Like, I'm smart, resourceful, beautiful. And it just made me roll my eyes, because why do you have to say that? If you actually are smart, resourceful, and beautiful, and all those things, which she could be, like, there's nothing wrong with writing female characters that are smart and beautiful and resourceful, but if they have to, the moment that it comes out of their mouths, it makes you doubt it, right? Because people who are actually powerful and smart, they don't have to, they're not insecure enough to the point where they have to remind people of that so overtly. So that was one thing that I found very annoying about Indiana Jones, but I still enjoyed Indiana Jones. And then also another thing that happens a lot is that those female characters are portrayed as like, okay, so they're smart, they're supposed to be better than men at everything, they outsmart men, they can belittle men, but then at the same time they also are just completely absolved of any personal responsibility, right? Like, they cannot make a mistake, which in my opinion is also not, doesn't do any favors to true female representation in film. And so I feel like for both Top Gun and Mission Impossible, I was very happy to see that the female characters were represented as like very strong, independent, and resourceful in the correct way, in my opinion, and in a it was non-preachy. It was not like, I didn't get the sense that someone was trying to shove their form of extreme feminism down my throat. They basically, they just showed, right, through the people's actions and through the plot, like the complexities of these female characters. So first of all 4 female leads in the Dead Reckoning Part 1 are absolutely, like, I found all of their characters and the actresses very, very likable and relatable, which is saying a lot because there's 4, right? Like, we're not just talking about 1 or 2. There were 4. So there was Ilsa, and who I know is a long time member of the IMF, but it's the first time that I've been introduced to her in this movie. And then there's the new one. Oh my god, I'm gonna forget everyone's names. Grace, right? So she's the newest recruit with this latest installment. And then there is that assassin girl who is played by Pom. I never can get her last name right, so I'm not gonna try, but Pom, she's half Korean, I believe. And I don't know if she was like born and raised in France, or if she, somewhere in Europe for sure, but I don't know. She must be like a polyglot because she speaks Italian in this film, and then, but I see her speak English in perfect English in her interviews, so I feel like she probably speaks a couple of languages. And then who's the other one? That the villain, the White Widow, who is played by such a fabulous actress. Like, that actress, Vanessa Kirby, I think, gives off such goddess vibes. I was totally here for it. So like, all 4 of them, I found them to be very, very compelling, very fleshed out, well-rounded characters that it's not like, you don't get the sense that like the actors are trying to shove a message down your throat that, oh, you know, all women are amazing and beautiful and can do no wrong. No, that's not what women are, right? Women are human beings first and foremost, just like men. So I love how in this movie we have women who are good, women who are evil, women who kind of toe the line, right? Like, sometimes they are dealing with their own internal conflict of whose side they're trying to be on, or like what action they should take next, you know. And you see them in the moment dealing with that moral dilemma, and sometimes they choose right, sometimes they choose the wrong side, and it's just a very human human tendencies that they deal with, just like men. Spoiler alert, women kill men in this movie and men kill women, you know? So it's not like, and then there's also that scene where in the final train wreck sequence, which by the way was the most like, that was the most tense and high stakes train wreck that I've ever seen in my life. It was so, you know, I felt exhausted at the end of it, which I think that's an indication that the movie makers did their job, because it was just like never ending, you know? They were essentially what happened, so don't watch if you don't want spoilers, but essentially what happens is that the train is like, the bridge that the train is supposed to cross over has gotten bombed, so the bridge is down and the train, they're able to break it, but it's still kind of going, like the rest of the velocity that's left in the train is like pushing it to the bridge. So then Grace and Ethan are having to basically race towards the back of the train before their car is the next one to fall off the cliff, right? And you see them like literally racing through the train cars as each train car kind of breaks off and then falls off down the cliff. And it's just like the most visually gripping scene that I've seen in a while. So during that scene, you can see that, you know, it shows Grace being scared, right? Genuinely scared. And it's not like she can't be scared because she's a woman, you know, like, oh, because she's a woman, she's just so strong and she's courageous and not afraid of anything. No, it shows her being like, of course she's going to be scared. She's the newest recruit into this impossible mission force. She didn't necessarily even want to join in the first place, right? But they gave her the choice. They said, you know, if you want to join, this is what you do when you're on the train, when you reach this discussion with that person, Kittredge, I think is his name. And so like, we don't even know until that moment on the train whether or not she's decided to join them or if she's going to decide to completely betray them. So we don't know. But then yeah, when Hunt finally shows up onto the train to help her, you can see that she's visibly scared, you know, and she's visibly like looking to him for guidance, right? During that, so like I think the most tense part of the movie is when they're hanging, like they've ran through a few cars already that have already, you know, the previous box car that they were in had already fallen off down the cliff, and then like the last one that they're in, it's pretty much vertical, so they're like hanging onto whatever furniture or foothold that they can grasp and trying to climb themselves up at a completely 90-degree vertical angle so that they can get to the boxcar that's actually on top of the cliff. So like you see in that sequence, she's like, you know, really hanging on for her life, right? Like both Ethan and her, they have like one hand on a handlebar somewhere and everything's like straining and about to snap off at any second. But Ethan is coaching her through it, right? He's like, okay, listen, don't look down. You have to listen to me, right? You trust me. So let me tell you what to do, right? So he's giving her instructions on how to basically like get up and not fall to her bloody horrible death. And so she's like listening to him, and she's really, you know, she's scared, but she's listening to him, she's respecting him, because obviously he has more experience than her in this line of work. And there was no weirdness about how, there was no having to prove that she knows better than him, even though he's the veteran in this scenario, so of course he would know better on how to save them. So there was none of that, right? Like, I like that they showed that, yeah, if a man is doing what he's supposed to do and acting in a virtuous way, then it's absolutely okay, and it should be encouraged for a woman to respect that man and take his lead, which is exactly what happened. And then it also wasn't afraid to show, like, even earlier in the movie where they did that where they did that car chase in Venice in the yellow Fiat, which was like really hilarious, right? Because it was hilarious because like when they have a device thing that help them track what car in the nearby vicinity they can hijack, basically. And so when they come across, so the device says, oh, there's a car on your right or something, and then they think they're both of them are looking to their right, and there's a yellow Fiat, and then there's this like really much cooler looking sports car, like a gray, you know, sleek car next to it, and they're both, everyone in the audience laughed at this point because you can tell that they're like, okay, they're contemplating in that second, in that split second, that maybe we should just go with this gray car with the blacked out windows because it looks cooler. Like, but of course they have to go into the Fiat, and then they're like handcuffed to each other, so don't ask how that happened. But and it shows that Grace is like not a good driver, right? Which I'm so glad that they went there, even though that was like kind of a small comic relief portion. I feel like, you know, this day and age, people are so sensitive. Like, the super feminists would have been like, no, that's sexist to portray women as being bad drivers. But I mean, like, women do tend to be bad drivers a lot of the time. It's not to say that anyone, it's not like we're saying that men are better drivers or women are better drivers. It's just that, like, I know in my life, okay, I'll speak for myself, right? I am not a good driver. Like, I crashed my mom's car within the first 24 hours of getting my driver's license, which was when I was 20, by the way. So I didn't even get it at the normal age that you're supposed to, at like 17. And when I finally did get it, that was my second time taking the test. So I failed the first time. So I'm the living example of the stereotype that women can't drive well. And that's fine because it's the truth, right? So I'm glad that like they didn't shy away from making a joke like that, right? And then even Grace herself, she was not like, she wasn't trying to prove anything. She was like, at one point she's gets out of the car and kind of forces Ethan into the driver's seat, and she's like, no, look, listen, you're gonna drive from now on. And even though like the handcuff makes it very inconvenient for them to be in that formation, but you know, that's just how it goes down sometimes. So yeah, and then also even the villain, right, played by Palm, I don't remember her name in the movie, or if they even give her a name, but she was like the assassin, I guess she was hired by the White Widow. But even her, I felt that it was very, very like nuanced. I kind of want to learn more about her backstory, although I don't know if did she actually die in the last scene? Maybe, I don't know. But like I saw some articles online where people were saying that, oh, you know, her presence in the film only further perpetuates the silent Asian assassin stereotype. And I have to say, like, I don't agree with that assessment at all. I feel like people, I mean, I have sympathy for like my fellow Asian moviegoers who are just very really hopeful and really itching to see like better Asian representation on screen. But I feel like sometimes, I don't know, I cannot agree with the assessment that she was just like a silent, deadly Asian killer with no personality. I don't agree with that. I feel like this might honestly be a case of just you seeing things where they don't, you seeing, like, I think it's a case of people being traumatized by maybe those overt representations of Asians in past movies and then just projecting it onto this movie. Because if anything, if anyone in this movie was a silent female character with no personality, I feel like that would be Ilsa, right? I mean, I know that she's more of a main character to the series as a whole. She's been in the IMF force for a while, so maybe in other movies she was more talkative, but I feel like in this movie she barely said anything. Like, we don't really get her any sense of her struggle or her emotions throughout this movie. And then again, spoiler alert, she dies at the hands of Gabriel, because that's what the algorithm, the AI entity who is the enemy in the movie, says. It predicts that or you know, it basically forces, or it writes the future that Ethan is going to have to choose between saving her and saving Grace, or like just choose between the fact that one of them is going to die no matter what. So it ends up being Ilsa, although I'm not really sure about her death being permanent, to be honest with you. I have like a slight inkling of a feeling, maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I have a slight suspicion that they're going to bring her back somehow in the next movie, in the Dead Reckoning Part 2. Like, maybe she was faking dead, you know? Because she did do that when Ethan and her have their first encounter of the movie, which is in like the desert somewhere, one of the Arab desert, and she is literally lying on the ground pretending like she's dead when Ethan enters her hideaway, because she's like, you know, she's hiding from the shooters, whoever those are. I think somebody sent them to kill her. So yeah, and then, you know, they reunite and she goes back with Ethan. But like, that scene where she battles Gabriel and he stabs her in the heart, I feel like that was just so, it was so quick and glossed over. Like they barely gave her a proper farewell either. They barely, and then you never see like Ethan or any of the other members really have a moment to reflect on their grief and trauma from her passing. I mean, not that they had time really. They were trying to they were racing against the clock, trying to locate this key or get possession of the key so that the bad guys don't get it to access the AI entity. But still, I just feel like I feel like the death was too unceremonious for it to be the final word in Ilsa's story. But yeah, like going back to what I was saying about, you know, people complaining that Palm's character was too silent and oh, it's because she's Asian. I don't think so. I really don't think so, because Ilsa was also pretty silent in this movie. So maybe you guys are the ones that still have an unconscious bias. Did you ever think of that? Because maybe you guys see a white female character, and to me, the fact that you're upset about the Asian female character being portrayed as mostly silent but not the white character, it tells me that you see white female characters as inherently having a presence or like inherently being important to the story even if they don't talk. So but then if you're upset about the Asian character not having enough lines, then why do you think that the Asian character needs to have so many lines in order to be considered important in the movie? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, why is Palm, for me, Palm, first of all, Palm did have a lot of lines, okay? Like, she even, one of the last important exchanges that Tom Cruise's character has with somebody from, you know, the enemy camp, although at the end she kind of is not, she's not really part of that group anymore. She's not on the side of the White Widow, so she kind of becomes like her own, she makes her own decision, right? So to me that demonstrates autonomy. To me that demonstrates like intrigue. For obviously we don't have enough time to go into every single character's backstory in how long is this movie, like a 2.5 hour long movie, but you know, maybe in the future I feel like it leaves room for that, because I found myself wanting to know more about her, like know where she came from, who she trained with, like why did she choose this line of work? Did she choose it, or was she kind of born into it? Did she really have a chance? You know, like that kind of thing. I feel like that's good storytelling, right? That I was left with that longing to learn more about her, but the movie didn't give me a lot, right? They gave me just enough to get me hooked, but they kept the rest of her story mysterious. And so to me, that's the mark of like a strong character, that you don't know that much about them, but you still you find yourself wanting to learn more about their backstory. I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or you can argue with me in the comments, but I'm not gonna respond because I know that I'm right about this one. No, it's not that deep, but no, I felt that Palm's character had a lot of presence. I didn't think it was stereotypical at all. I mean, like, she had a badass outfit. Maybe it was kind of cosplay-ish, like the jacket that she was wearing, and then, you know, she had a katana sword. But, like, aside from that, I didn't really see anything stereotypical. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a cosplay outfit and a katana, right? That's a pretty cool instrument of destruction, no matter which way you cut it, like no matter which race you're from. And then she also spoke Italian, right? So it's not even like they didn't depict her in some stereotypical Asian accent. Yeah, I think you guys are tripping. I don't know. Like whoever wrote that article, which I don't remember, I'm not gonna go look it up again, but yeah, stop projecting. Like don't just take a minute and like remind yourself that we don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything to prove ourselves more. We are already on equal footing as everyone else. So just like you don't question Ilsa's importance to the story, don't question Palm's importance either, just because she said maybe a few less lines than you would have liked personally. And then there's, I'm sure after I get off this stream, I'm gonna think of a million other things that I missed. But there was another thing that just pertaining to the plot of the movie that I feel like if I was writing this script, I would have come up with something a lot more scandalous. Okay, I feel like every time I watch a movie, and this is why I started to really push myself to come on live to give my thoughts on these movies is because I feel that my takes are extremely original. If not on the movie as a whole, there's always like one area or just one certain perspective that I have that I never see other people talking about, and I am pretty proud of that, if I'm gonna be honest. I mean, yeah, weird flex, bro. But okay, so they're trying to find the two halves of the key that unlocks the mother code or whatever of the AI entity, right? Which in itself it's asinine. Okay, it's Mission Impossible. We know that it's already over the top, so I'm not gonna harp on them for that. So let's just pretend, okay, we live in a universe where this is plausible. First of all, I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? The enemy is AI. It can take, I don't even know what it is. Is it like a computer program, or is it like, it seems to be some sort of super computer program. It started off that way, but then it like transcended different dimensions, and now it just predicts people's every moves, and it turns into people's worst nightmares, or it plays out the worst case scenarios. I don't know. We'll probably find out more in Dead Reckoning Part 2, but so just the fact alone that a physical key is going to unlock like the most powerful computer algorithm thing of all time is ridiculous. But anyway, I guess it's the source code, right? So you have to get to the source code, even if you're I mean, the governments of the world are trying to obtain the key so that they can get power, but I think Ethan Hunt is going rogue and trying to destroy it or something, right? Because he recognizes that having that much power in the hands of one man or one country is just way too much, and it will, it's going to expedite world destruction. So that is pretty much the premise of the whole story, the whole plot. And so they're trying to find two halves of the key, right? And then throughout the entire movie, like everyone, so Grace is good at pickpocketing, and then Ethan kind of riffs off that. So they like, there's several times in the movie where I lost track how many times people pickpocketed the key out of somebody else's pocket, which was kind of annoying to me because it just led me to the very obvious question of, why does everyone keep putting this thing in their damn pockets then? Like, if you know that it's that easy for someone to pickpocket you, why would you put something so valuable that everyone is after in your damn pocket? Or I think there was one, yeah, like, or they'll put it, I don't know. There was one scene where Grace like threw it in a trash can, and then she put it in the pocket of a stranger on her first flight over to wherever they were going. I don't remember, like Abu Dhabi. No, they flew from Abu Dhabi airport to somewhere else, Italy. And yeah, like everyone keeps putting the key in their pocket, and then like even like on the train chase, which I don't remember chronologically when that happens in this movie. I guess it's like near the end, right? Because it's the train chase, and then there's the train catastrophic crash like over the cliff and the broken bridge. So like during the train chase, when Ethan is fighting with, what's his name? Angelo? Miguel? No. Gabriel. So I don't know who, I think Gabriel is a recurring character too, right? Like a legacy character. So I have no idea who Gabriel is. This is my first time meeting him. But him and Ethan are fighting on the train top. And then Ethan's challenge is to not kill Gabriel, right? Because the algorithm is banking on his, okay, so Ethan's, one of Ethan's like tech savvy colleagues from the IMF told him that probably the algorithm is counting on two possible outcomes from Ethan, because the algorithm is actually scared, like the AI entity is scared that Ethan is going to win, because out of anyone, Ethan is the only one who has the possibility of overthrowing this entity. So the tech guy, sorry, I forgot his name, says that there's probably two things that the algorithm is banking most of its bets on. Either Ethan dies on the train, right, at the hands of someone, one of the henchmen, or Ethan kills Gabriel, and then in which case, like, it would follow again the second predetermined storyline set forth by the algorithm. So it's going to eventually lead him to, like, it's going to eventually lead the algorithm to win anyway over Ethan Hunt. So the advice that was given to Ethan was don't kill Gabriel, right? And this is the emotional, you know, conflict that he has within himself, because Gabriel literally stabbed Ilsa in the heart. Like, he has Ilsa's blood on her hands, so that's going to be very difficult for Ethan to resist killing him when he's actually looking him in the eyes, right? So like what happens, you know, on the top of the train when they're fighting, and then Ethan finally gets Gabriel in the pinned down position where he has like a dagger to his throat, like about to slit his throat, and you can see he's going through his internal conflict of, okay, I really want to kill this MFer, right, who is the reason that my friend was slain, or, you know, let him go and thwart the algorithm, thwart the oh my god, thwart the entity that way. And so like, but while he's thinking, like, I don't know, some other people pop up, and then Gabriel just falls off the train onto the back of some truck that's passing by. So, but then like Gabriel was keeping the key in his pocket this whole time, and then we find out that Ethan pickpocketed Gabriel while he was pinning him down with the dagger. Are you following me? Like, maybe I need to work on my summary skills, but like, again, that induced an eye roll from me. It's kind of like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, right? Like the first couple of times, okay, it was funny, it was flirtatious, right? Like between Grace and Ethan, when she was she pickpocketed the key from him, and then like he would pickpocket it from her, and he would put, you know, his lighter in the place where the key was, to, I guess, to make sure that the weight, she didn't sense anything with the difference of weight. But then like that was cute for a couple of times, but then by the denouement of the story, right, when we're on the freaking roof of the train, a high-speed runaway train with the emergency brakes are like ruined. They're I think who was it? Oh my god, what's his name? Gabriel. Gabriel had already made sure that the emergency brakes would not work on this thing, so they're like hurtling to their death, right, to that bridge that has already been detonated. And then you're still gonna pull the same old trick of somebody pickpocketing the key out of the main villain's pocket. Like, come on. So do you want to hear my not suitable for work suggestion? Like, very simple, very obvious way of hiding the key that I can't believe nobody thought of. But I mean, I kind of understand, because I don't think they can really put this in a mainstream action movie. But like, there's 2 women on your I Am Neth team, right? Up until, you know, at least the first half of the movie, Ilsa and Grace. There's 2 women who have a certain body anatomy that you could easily fit the key into, so that nobody would be able to get to that area or pickpocket or do anything. Do you catch my drift? Like, okay, maybe if you put the key in there just by itself, like in its raw key form, maybe that would be hella uncomfortable, yes. But like, you could put it in, I don't know, a tampon sized capsule thing, and you could just like stick it up there, and how is anybody gonna swipe the key from you when you're not looking that way? I think this is I mean, it's human anatomy, and we're not talking about like a gratuitous X scene type of thing. We're talking about like common sense. Like, I feel like in real life, if this was the conflict that was going down, that would be the most obvious, foolproof way of hiding the key, or keeping it in safekeeping. Like, there's 4 women, right? There's 4 women leads in this movie. Any 4 of them could have done this. So yeah, including the bad guys too, like the White Widow and her the assassin woman played by Palm. Just put the key in like a tampon thing and put it up there for, I mean, isn't this what people do in real life with drugs when they're like smuggling drugs into some country? Don't they like ingest it? Or, I mean, even men, okay? You don't necessarily have to be a woman even. Come to think of it, like, don't we hear news stories about men smuggling drugs or whatever into airports by sticking like a bag of the stuff up there, you know what? I'm just saying, like, realism, guys. You want your stunts to look so realistic that you're willing to actually ride off the cliff full speed on a motorcycle. Why can't you come up with a more realistic, like, truly savage, truly foolproof way of keeping the key in your possession? Anyway, I feel like their writer's room needs to hire me for sure. Why am I getting like 5 million notifications from Instagram all of a sudden? Okay, so yeah, that was it. I saved the best for last. I hope that you understood what I was getting at there. I mean, I can't help it, okay? This is just how my mind works. I believe that, like, nobody else on the internet who has reviewed this movie has probably thought about that. I think I'm the only one. And I think I had another one so for my Indiana Jones review, there was something that I thought about afterwards, after I researched the franchise a little bit more, and I found that, a lot of people were unhappy with the character of Helena Shaw. She wasn't my favorite, I'll say that, but I still don't think that the movie warranted as much hate as it did. But I do understand the sentiment of fans, though, when they said that they preferred that the series would just bring back a legacy character in place, instead of just like creating a new feminist one out of thin air. So I was getting recommended like Harrison Ford and Indy Jones content on my YouTube for a while, and then one of them was, I saw a clip of Ke Huy Quan and Harrison Ford hugging at like the Oscars, and then so I found out that, oh, Ke Huy Quan, who just recently won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once, I found out that he played Short Round, I think it was, in Indiana, like one of the earlier movies, Temple of Doom maybe. And so I didn't even know that, like, I didn't know they had a young Asian kid in those movies. So when I found that out, it was very heartwarming to me. It was the same, like, when I look back, sometimes I'm like, why did nobody tell me about this? The fact that there were actually, like, key Asian characters in these classic older Hollywood films. I feel like back then, people didn't make a big deal about it in terms of, like, oh, inclusivity or whatever. It was genuinely, like, it was genuinely a good character and like a necessary character that people respected and liked, and that was the main reason why they were there, not the fact that they were a certain ethnicity or race. So there is an element of that which I admire, and to be quite frank, I like it better than some of the more overt, what do you want to call it, like virtue signaling in terms of diversity with the more recent releases. Not saying that it's bad, like, I will always be happy for whoever is a minority who's finally getting opportunities and roles in Hollywood, but I'm just saying a lot of times these days it does feel forced. Or, I mean, just stop having people say out loud how important they are because of their gender or their race. Like, for crying out loud, please stop writing these really obvious, cringy lines into the scripts that where the character has to actually say out loud verbatim like why they matter, because the only signal that sends is that you don't actually matter because you're insecure enough to have to remind people about it. Like, stop, okay? But yeah, so Short Round, people were very, I thought that was like so cute, by the way. Oh my god, Ke Huy Quan and Harrison Ford. Ke Huy Quan is like, what, in his 50s now? So I think that makes sense, right? Because Harrison Ford is 80, so he was in his 30s for the first Indiana Jones movies, and Ke Huy Quan was like 13 or whatever in the movie. So when you see them now, it's kind of like, I see the same dynamic, like an older father figure type of man and just a little kid. Ke Huy Quan looks like a little kid to me, even though he's 50. He just has that like exuberant spirit, and I mean, Asian don't reason either, so what can I say? Good genes. But like, people were saying that they would have liked to see Ke Huy Quan being brought back for the new Indiana Jones instead of a new like feminist character created out of thin air. of the likes of Helena Shaw. And I don't know if I want to say this because it might trigger a few people, but okay, whatever. I think the reason that they can't do that is because, again, I don't know the specifics of the plot of the original movies, but as I understand it, okay, Short Round, the character, was supposed to be like a little orphan Chinese boy who became an orphan because the Japanese bombed the city that he lived in, so that resulted in his parents and his immediate family dying, which is why he became an orphan, which is how he got connected to Indiana Jones, right? This is the plot in the movie, and I don't think that would go over well if they brought back such a character in the new Indiana Jones movie. Because, like, it kind of is... It's kind of like, okay, you could bring him back, but then if you just, like, didn't address it, you have to address the background of the character, right? Even if Short Round is now grown up and they now have like a different, you know, dynamic as the action adventure duo, it would be too obvious. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you're damned if you're, oh my god, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't with the Short Round character, right? In terms of like going back over his history, because now you have to explain. I mean, you can't just like have him pop up out of nowhere after 50 years and just reunite with Indy on this adventure. You have to get into his backstory, right? So like after the adventures with Indy, what did he do, right? Like how did he make his way into the world as a boy with, you know, a history of losing his parents at a young age because the Japanese bombed his town in Shanghai or whatever it was. Again, I don't know the details, but like that would be very controversial, even though it's a fictional character. Like just bringing that up, it would not go over well, especially with Asian audiences, like international. They gotta think about, this is Disney after all, so they do need to take into consideration the reception in Asia. So like imagine bringing back Short Round and then having to go back into that backstory of Short Round and the actual political tensions that are happening between Japan and China in present day. It would just not go over well in either country, like no matter how much people like the Indiana Jones franchise. And so that's why I feel like it was much safer to bring just this generic run-of-the-mill British whatever girl, Helena Shaw, that was the daughter of one of Indiana Jones's, you know, best friends. Like that was a safer route for sure, from a political standpoint, if you get my drift. So like, but I still think I'm with you guys though. I'm with you guys. I think that they do owe it to that character and to the fans to bring Short Round back. Like he deserves to, if anyone deserves it, it's Short Run, you know, to go on a like that would be so cool to see him go on another adventure with Indiana Jones 50 years after the fact. They're both adults now. Short Round is like well into his career as, I don't know, a lawyer or whatever. But yeah, it would be impossible to reintroduce that character without going back into the the story about how he lost his parents, and that's just a can of worms that, like, trust me, Disney would not go there. Even if it made a lot of money, right? Like, even if it made a lot of money, I don't think Disney is going to touch anything that politically loaded. So that's why, for those of you who are, you know, hurting and upset about the fact that they didn't bring back Short Round, that's my take, and I suspect that I'm right on why they could never do that. So I don't know if you guys want to petition them. I mean, Disney's not doing so well from what I hear, because Indiana Jones, I don't think, did that well financially on a global scale, which does make me feel bad, because, like, I feel like Harrison Ford deserves better for his efforts, but then again, you know, a bad film is a bad film. Not that I think it's bad, but a lot of people think it's bad, and I respect everyone's opinions. I can see the criticism there. So speaking of Disney, I do have thoughts on the new Snow White, but I might save them for a later video, Or I might just talk about it when I actually watch it, which is going to be like, I don't know how long from now. You guys know that I'm still waiting with bated breath for Barbie, the Barbie movie, to release in Japan August 11th. I feel like it's the millionth time that I'm saying that. But I have made plans to go with a friend, and we are going to find this Barbie booth thing. They set up like a photo booth in one of the department stores in Shinjuku where you can take the picture like in the life-size Barbie package display thing. And so I'm gonna have to like pick out my outfit for that. But August 11th, you guys, that seems like an eternity away. And you don't even know how much I have been dodging bullets left and right on the internet trying to avoid spoilers for this thing, because everybody's talking about Barbie, right? Like pretty much everyone else in the world has already seen this movie, even Korea. Like why did Korea get such a, I'm not saying that like Japan should get an earlier release than anyone else, but why is Korea like a whole month earlier than Japan? I don't understand. Are they coming to Japan even? Like, I feel like they should. I feel like Barbie is a huge thing here. The whole, it fits with a lot of the fashion trends here, like the whole dolly thing, you know. There's like Japanese dolly aesthetic, of course that's different, but Barbie kind of fits in that whole vein of being a doll, right? Being like blonde, California. It's a thing, it's a vibe. I don't think I'm gonna make it, if I'm completely honest. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to avoid spoilers for any longer. So I hope I do, but I don't think it's possible because it's literally everywhere I turn. Like, at some point, I'm gonna come across a TikTok video where the person just spoils the entire plot and resolution before I can even realize what's going on. I mean, I hear that it's very like emotional. Do Barbie and Ken break up? Because I've been having that, I don't know, like when I started to have this thought, I literally woke up in the middle of the night once, and I don't know if I actually watched this in a TikTok or if it just came to me in my dreams, but I was like, oh my god, I had this vision of Barbie and Ken breaking up. Because I saw people saying that they were really crying so hard and they were so emotional during the Barbie movie, so I know it's going to be like some deep, you know, it's like, you can already tell from the trailer, right? Like, first of all, you can tell that all of the Kens do not like each other, and the Kens seem to be second-class citizen in Barbie Land. So I was like, I think my subconscious just kind of took that and ran, and I feel like it's just not that far off base to think that, okay, maybe when they go to the real world, Ken realizes that he's a lot happier here because of, you know, patriarchy and like things being easier for men in the real world. And so maybe for Ken, who has always been used to being second rate or second class in Barbie Land, maybe he actually finds that he wants to be in the real world, and then, I don't know, maybe maybe their relationship cannot last through this conflict. And I'm just, oh my god, hold it together. I didn't even play with Barbies that much when I was a kid. Like, I was the kid that would, you know, rip off all their clothes and cut their hair and burn their fingers and stuff. Like, it was not, I think Kate McKinnon plays that kind of a Barbie, right? The one that all the kids cut the hair off. So I think that's genius how they incorporated all of those little inside jokes in there. Oh yeah, one last comment that I'll make about Mission Impossible. So again, I know that this is not like what you would expect from a typical movie review, but again, this is my channel, so I'm not like a movie critic channel. I see everything through my own unique lens, and since I'm going on this whole journey of like self-discovery and spirituality, I can't help but see most of the things that I watch or that the media that I consume in the same light. So I feel like Mission Impossible also is kind of like low-key manifestation spirituality adjacent for me. Like the whole concept of an impossible mission, right? like being called upon from the I lost my train of thought. No, I'm trying to I don't want to just like talk BS. I had a specific example, but I'm not remembering right now. Okay, maybe I will come on later if I, or maybe I'll put it in a shorts video if I remember, but I'm blanking. There was something I wanted to say with regards to manifestation though. Maybe it had to do with the entity being able to predict your every move. Oh, okay, I got it. I remember. So in Mission Impossible, you really get the sense that they're living in, okay, so they have, I don't know if this was like a running theme with all the Mission Impossible movies, or if they just really upped the ante with the whole AI, artificial intelligence, like technology frontier in this movie. I'm guessing the latter is true, right? Because I just feel like in the past, I mean, when was the first Mission Impossible movie? In the 80s? So I feel like throughout the decades, technology has grown, advanced so much in real time. I don't think there was even social media at the time that the first movie came out. So I think in this installment, this is definitely the most like technologically advanced that you've ever seen the characters be, or just the whole setting in general. And so you'll see throughout the movie, like for example, they have all this technology of like when they're chasing through the, when the government guys are chasing Ethan through the airport, and they have this face monitoring technology that they're scanning every single person that's walking through the airport, and they find Ethan. But then when the, like the people who are the tech people, IT people who are advising the people on the ground who are chasing Ethan, they're telling them, okay, this person on your right, 3 feet in front of you, that he's there, that's him. And but then whenever they would go catch that person, when you would see the actual person's face, it was not Ethan's face. And the reason for that is because someone on the IMF team, again, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, not Benji, the other one. So like he was hacking into their face recognition technology so that he was able to superimpose Ethan's face on like a stranger's face, like someone else. He would pick other people in the airport that had the same body type, the same build as Ethan Hunt, and put Ethan's face on it so as to throw off the bad guys that were, or the people that were chasing him. And so I feel like what I wanted to say about this is that I feel like a lot of people, their fear of technology, this speaks to the fear that a lot of people have about the advancement of technology, in the sense that, we're looking at a future where your every move can be traced. You, even if you're just walking into a supermarket or walking through an airport, we have enough data on everyone. We have sophisticated technology that can literally track you and like basically download all of your information, all of your life history, by just scanning your face for a fraction of a second, right? And so I think to many people, that's very, very scary, a very scary prospect. And there's validity in that for sure, but I don't know. I also have kind of a different take on it. Like, to me, being a 90s baby, being somebody who grew up during the height of, Facebook, social media. Before Facebook, there was Zanga. Okay, let's not forget. Before MySpace and Facebook, there was Zanga. And what was it, like Angel Fire? I never had an Angel Fire blog, so that was like slightly before my time, but I definitely had Zanga. I had AOL chat, I had MySpace, and then we had Facebook, and then we get Instagram and Twitter, and now it just like blew up from there. From my perspective, like as a millennial that was there for the entire, I feel like the entirety of the evolution of the world into this huge interconnected like virtual space that social media space that we see today, I find some comfort in the fact that there is a record of you and everything that you've ever done, like at any given point in time. So obviously not, obviously if you're not on the run for some sort of federal crime, like that's not useful to you at all for people to be able to locate you that quickly through using technology. But hopefully, luckily, you're not a criminal in real life, right? Hopefully you're just a good, ordinary civilian trying to make the best of your time here on Earth. I don't see anything particularly wrong with that, right? As long as you live in a free country, of course, if your government is not corrupt. Like I think about the opposite that was true back in ancient times, like medieval times, where we had, it was the complete opposite, right? We had no way of really tracking people, other than writing things down in tablet or in stone, family, handwritten family records or whatnot. But they didn't even have, like, they didn't have photography even to remember people by. I find that in a way, like, equally, in the opposite direction, but I find it equally kind of sad and terrifying, right? To imagine myself living in that time and having no one remember who I was. Like, let's say that I got lost, or I don't know, I got into some sort of fatal accident, and there was a great possibility, if I was away from my village or my family, who would even find me, right? Like, who would locate my body? What if my body was disfigured beyond recognition? How would my family get that kind of that closure, right? Aside from the immense pain that they're already in from losing me, it would be a very low chance of them even getting any sort of news or closure about my death, right? Like, there would be no body, there would be no way for, even if somebody like found me on the side of the road dead, how would that person communicate back to my village? How would they even identify me? Or how could they identify where I came from originally to bring news of my passing back to my family and loved ones, right? I find that, I mean, that's equally, like, I would personally, as somebody who is of the 21st century, I find that more despairing and more depressing, honestly, than a world where we kind of have like hyper visibility and like excessive even amounts of records on every single individual that's ever walked the planet. Hey, at least you have some sort of blueprint, right? At least people know who you are. At least, God forbid anything did happen to you, that news would get back to your parents and your loved ones in a matter of seconds, maybe hours, right? Maybe a day at most if you're like on the other side of the world. But it's just something that's not only do you have that information because of our technology systems these days, or like the data collection systems, not only do you have the information, the time that it would take for it to get back to your next of kin is light years compared to what it would have been in medieval times. So I want to leave you with that thought, because that's the way that I look at it. Like, I don't like the whole, and I think that that is kind of also the one of the overall, like, overarching messages that this film is trying to give. So even though the AI entity is kind of like wreaking havoc and making putting people in all these life and death situations, the film makes it very clear that the people who are getting themselves in a tizzy over all of this, the people that are making all these conflicts, is not the AI itself, it's the humans, right? So it just enforces the idea, which I believe in deeply, that technology itself is very, very neutral. It has no type of like morality. It's not a bad or a good thing inherently. It is solely up to the intention of the user, right? How humans choose to use technology is what makes it harmful or bad, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna leave you with that, because my voice is dying, and I'll see you next time. Bye.